Devastation in Dominica, the Eastern Caribbean island reeling from the effects of a powerful Category 5 storm. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Lorraine Samuels. Also this evening, we will help. Jamaica's Prime Minister pledges support for Dominica.
Bracing for impact, Turks and Caicos Islands prepare for Hurricane Maria, even as residents struggle to pick up the pieces after Hurricane Irma.
Premature. Security Minister says no FLA board appointed hours after his ministry released a list of board members.
Long overdue. What St. Mary residents say about a controversial road project.
And in business news, increase. Cost to make phone calls for some Digicel customers going up.
There's also sports, post commentary and weather in the primetime package. But before the break, the feedback question.
Do you have any concerns about the timing of the Junction Road project given the issues raised by the opposition?
Share comments online, facebook.com/Television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam.
Stay with us. Primetime News returns after this break.
Welcome back to Primetime News. Special welcome to the folks watching on onespotmedia.com.
A reminder as well that you can watch TVJ live by downloading our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the word Spot and Media.
First of the weather, a track of devastation continues through the region as another Category 5 hurricane barrels through the Caribbean, having left Dominica reeling.
The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, says preliminary reports suggest that 6 people have died as a result of the powerful Hurricane Maria.
Up to news time, there are also reports that one of the fatalities was recorded in Guadeloupe. But before reaching Guadeloupe, Maria devastated Dominica, leaving the country virtually cut off from the rest of the world.
TVJ's Herman Green has been following that story.
Within a matter of hours, what was Tropical Storm Maria on Sunday intensified exponentially, slamming into the Eastern Caribbean island of Dominica as a Category 5 hurricane Monday night. Its devastating strength impacting everyone, including Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt.
The country has been devastated from, if I'm to go by the strength of the wind and the heavy rain we received. As you said, personally, I was affected. The roof or the residence caved in because of the strength of the wind.
During this telephone interview with CNN, Prime Minister Skerritt confirmed his previous tweets that he had to be rescued from his home by the island's police force. This raised chilling questions about the safety of other residents. Most areas were without electricity and water for what Mr. Skerritt described as a very long night. By daybreak, the devastation was clear.
Well, we haven't gotten any word yet on casualties because no one really can go out at this time. But I'm getting reports of lots of damage to buildings, private dwellings, and also business places. So, as I said, once we can venture out, we will do a complete assessment, and the first order of business is to look after the welfare of the citizens and ensure that we can account for everybody.
By Mr. Skerritt's assessment, the force of the wind along with heavy rainfall nullified the preparations his government had put in place prior to Maria making landfall. Additionally, he says, while they had been preparing for a Category 3 storm all day Monday, the rapid intensification to a Category 5 made the impact even worse. The size of the Jamaican population in Dominica is not clear. However, attempts to make contact with any of them have been futile so far. Herman Green, TVJ News.
In the meantime, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, says operations are going to be difficult in Dominica. The agency held a press conference in Barbados earlier today. TVJ's Vashon Brown has more.
Hurricane Maria made landfall in Dominica at 9:35 last night, the time some would have been preparing for bed. It entered the tiny island nation from the southeast coast with 155 miles per hour winds. It weakened from a Category 5 storm today to a Category 4, but soon after regained its Category 5 strength. Puerto Rico is preparing for a direct hit. The U.S. and the British Virgin Islands are also expected to experience hurricane-force winds.
As the projected track continues to the west-northwest, we expect sometime on Thursday, for Wednesday into Thursday, for it to move over Puerto Rico into the Atlantic Ocean and track towards the Turks and Caicos Islands. current model projection does have Turks and Caicos within the bands, but it's still a few days out. So looking at a better projection coming into Wednesday night to see what is happening with TCI.
Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDIMA, Ronald Jackson, says communication with Dominica has been a challenge due to disruption in the island's telecommunication network.
We have been able, through the amateur radio operators, to get some contact into Dominica over the course of this early afternoon, which indicated to us that there was severe damage to Marigot. And that's a town on the sort of northeastern side of the island.
SEDIMA says the operations in Dominica are going to be really complex. That's because the agency is anticipating landslides and rockfalls all over the island, which will make access difficult. Relief distribution is also expected to be complex. SEDIMA now has to be identifying landing areas for helicopters. Dominica also deployed a lot of its relief supplies to the British Virgin Islands after Hurricane Irma. So the country is without supplies to even begin a national response.
And what is interesting to note is that Dominica would have engaged in evacuation of its nationals out of St. Martin, out of the British Virgin Islands and Anguilla, given the impact there. And so these individuals would have faced 2 Category 5 storms in just over a week.
Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
Now back home, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has pledged Jamaica's support for Dominica while speaking in Parliament today. As TVJ's Andrea Chisholm now reports, talks have surfaced about Jamaica's ability to respond to disasters throughout the region by air.
Standing in solidarity with the people of Dominica.
If a request is made, and even if it isn't made and we can, the Jamaica Defence Force disaster response team of 120 men are standing by to provide whatever assistance we can.
That response includes, but not limited to, public order, engineering, relief distribution, and damage assessment. But there's a challenge.
Jamaica does not own any airlift capacity that could carry us down to the Eastern Caribbean.
And so Jamaica has reached out to multilateral partners such as the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States for assistance. Opposition Member of Parliament Ronald Thwaites wants to take it a step further.
It is necessary for us to think long term along these lines about commissioning a ship which would be fitted out and available for the relief of disasters within at least the areas covered now by SEDIMA.
Mr. Thwaites adds that the ship can also be used by the Caribbean Maritime University to not only train students in maritime but disaster preparedness and relief. The Prime Minister supported the idea, adding that talks have begun with Trinidad's Prime Minister about co-sponsoring a ship. Canada may also provide assistance. In the meantime, opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips says both Hurricane Irma and Maria will have a devastating effect on the region. In response, he says CARICOM and the rest of the region should mobilize the international community.
We will need to make it clear that in various areas, whether it be debt relief or whether it is the provision of funds, but this massive reconstruction effort which is going to be necessary is something that Jamaica has an interest in. I think it also behooves us to raise our voices loudly in this region. For some people, the idea of global warming seems like an abstraction and remote, but we are witnessing firsthand the growing intensity of hurricanes.
So while Jamaica remains thankful no hurricane visited our island, this message is being reiterated.
Preparation cannot be too much. It is better to be safe than to be sorry.
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
After being battered by Hurricane Irma, the Turks and Caicos Islands are now within the cone of the possible path of Hurricane Maria. Some residents are still struggling to get their lives back on track, and Good Samaritans, including a Jamaican, have been helping with recovery efforts. Here's TVJ's Andrea Chisholm.
A song of praise to a supreme being.
Because of the storm, when you have one service combined for everybody to come together, because we have to leave the building early so that people who use the building as shelter could come back to sleep.
Despite the bruises, battering and blackening skies indicating more trouble may be on the horizon, worship in the Turks and Caicos Islands, a hearty laugh and a semblance of normalcy in the midst of wreckage. Their location made Irma inescapable, and with Maria modeling a similar path, a Jamaican working with the team from the TCI's power company says they're already one step ahead.
We are already in preparation mode, thank God, and we are basically beefing up the resilience of the power grid. So hopefully this will be another true test of the hard work that we have put in.
The reality, though, is that most people are still without electricity, but they are looking ahead.
Now, here in South Caicos, we were told that this structure was flattened by Hurricane Irma. However, it's being reconstructed using the same material.
Why are you building back with them?
No choice. No choice. You don't build it back, you got to go home.
Oh, but aren't you afraid of another hurricane?
I don't know. Only God knows.
If you look at the damage in certain islands, particularly South Caicos, I'm told, you can find very clearly that the buildings that went by the code are the ones that weathered things best. What's the lesson from that? Apply the code.
But not many people in South Caicos have been able to apply and grasp that lesson.
We're going to look carefully at those areas in particular and how we enforce compliance with the building code and the development manual.
The construction of sturdy structures may take some time. For now, it's all about cleaning up or taking care of the basics like food and drink, thanks to a group of people who traveled by boat from Providenciales to South Caicos. Jimmy was grateful for the goodies, but after being bitten by Hurricane Ike in 2008, he is twice shy about current recovery efforts in South Caicos and gave his observation.
The high society take all the food, put it up in their cupboards and forget about the poor people on the streets. The hurricane shelters come, they're given to people who ain't lose none. I hope this time when the shit come in this time, the people who have losers get the stuff.
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
Our top story today, devastation in Dominica, the Eastern Caribbean island, reeling from the effects of a powerful Category 5 hurricane. Still to come, premature. Security Minister says no FLA board appointed hours after his ministry released a list of board members. And in business news, increased cost to make phone calls for some digital customers going up. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Continuing the news. There has been a surprise twist to the appointment of the new board of the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA. The Ministry of National Security is now indicating that no board has been appointed. In a statement this morning, National Security Minister Robert Montague said Cabinet met last night to discuss the appointment of the board. However, he said no decision was made. Mr. Montague says a release sent out yesterday by his ministry indicating that National Security Advisor Major General Anthony Anderson would lead a 5-member board approved by the Cabinet was done prematurely. The National Security Minister says he has left the island to attend an international conference, and when he returns there will be further deliberations by Cabinet.
There's a crisis in a section of the nation's justice system this evening. Lawyers representing more than a dozen policemen charged by Indicom have withdrawn their services over the non-payment of millions of dollars owed to them in legal fees by the government. The attorneys are owed $114 million. In a letter Monday addressed to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, the lawyers said they are no longer retained due to the non-payment of legal fees. The Police Federation has complained to the authorities about the constant delay in making the payment and the likely impact on the morale of members of the force. The Federation has been unable to pay the attorneys as the Legal Defense Fund has been exhausted due to the volume of police cases before the courts. Cabinet was expected to discuss the matter in February, but so far there has been no word on whether the payments will be made.
To the controversy now over a road project launched in St. Mary. The government has said it's simply completing a long overdue project. The opposition has said the government is seeking to curry favour with a by-election scheduled for one of the constituencies in the parish. TVJ's Janella Pursues visited the parish to speak with residents about what's happening and about the issue of roads in general.
The campaign billboards are up. In the North Bay St. Mary, they're on buildings and on trees. Along the now controversial Junction Road, they're on light poles. Both candidates, Dr. Norman Dunn and Dr. Shane Alexis, promising a better life for constituents. But high on the people's list of needs are roads. So when news came that over $600 million will be allocated to fix the Junction Main Road, residents in the area were ecstatic. For some, they don't care about concerns regarding political undertones of the road project. The people instead argue that the project is long overdue.
We want the road to repair. We don't even matter about the election, and the road we want to repair.
St. Mary and Portland will develop economically because we will get more people to come in, take the goods, the products out and bring in products.
Traffic is not an issue on the Junction Road. However, motorists are forced to drive with extreme caution. There are several breakaways along the winding road, and as has happened many times before, unlucky drivers end up here.
The problem that we face on a daily basis is that because of the bushes on the road on the side, we can't get to use the road properly. That is our biggest problem on a daily basis on the road.
Pedestrians too are said to be at risk.
My road well want to fix on the little children them walk on the road, and when they come here, so them have to stop. Because if a man shop, they car and the truck and everything come in upon them.
Breakaways and potholes aside, the area is known for land slippages, which is why one resident had a concern about the impending project.
So if we get it in the rain right now, it will be a lot of landslide. So it would be a good thing to work on the road at this time. We are looking through the road to work on January, February, you know, so we'll then dry time in time then. The rain are really, we don't expect no ever rain them time there.
But with the pending by-election,
we shouldn't use as a political tool. So be the case, make it state an election run. When election done, then do the thing.
So with the by-election date to be announced in the coming weeks, the people are hoping that regardless of the outcome, Southeast St. Mary will get better roads. Janella Precious, TVJ News.
Local authorities in Hanover are calling for a bypass to be built in the town of Lucy following yesterday's flooding. The Riley Bridge leading to the town was flooded, causing persons, including students, to be stranded for more than 5 hours. TVJ News understands that residents have been calling for the bypass for some time now, and Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett had promised last month that government was looking into building one in the area. Today, the mayor of the town, Sheridan Samuels, reiterated the calls.
The tourist industry yesterday was really at risk because of the flooding in the town, because I witnessed tourists want to get to the airport yesterday and couldn't move, and the traffic was backed up for over 5 hours. Can you imagine what impact that will make on the economy that we have and the industry that we depended on so much?
The Member of Parliament for Hanover Western, Ian Hales, was also in the area. He says he will be working with the councillor and the mayor to find a solution to the ongoing problem.
As everyone knows that there's a level of hurricane going on across the Caribbean now and North America. And it's something that we have to be concerned about in terms of drain cleaning and how best we as a parish can come together.
Several residents of Dexter and Darling Street in Savannah Lamar, Westmoreland have started to move out of their communities as the bloodletting continues across the parish. Recently, the police have seen a resurgence of violence in the parish with an attack on the elderly and women. Crime Chief for Area 1, Superintendent Michael Phipps, says over the past 2 weeks, the violence has caused a major disruption in several communities. The lives of residents on Darling and Dexter Streets have been severely disrupted. When TVJ News visited the area today, we were shown abandoned houses belonging to families that moved out of the area in fear of their lives.
Business places have been locked from 4 or 5 o'clock in the evenings. The way citizens are so afraid.
When I look on Darling Street, go straight up
to Uptown. This is one of the first main street. And it changed. People afraid to drive on it. A man then come in from different community and come shoot up the community.
Just Sunday morning, gunmen went on a rampage in the area, attacking a 95-year-old visually impaired woman on Darling Street. TVJ News understands that gunmen reportedly kicked open the door to the woman's house and shot her twice. She remains hospitalized. Several houses were also shot up.
Executive Director of National Integrity Action NIA, Trevor Monroe, is again calling for the opposition People's National Party to join the National Security Council. The council was set up by Cabinet to handle defense and national security issues. Speaking at a function in Spanish Town, St. Catherine on Monday, Mr. Monroe said there is no room for scoring political points when it comes to crime reform. He believes in order to control crime, various agencies within the government and the opposition should get involved.
The proposal that the policy-making body which deals with security, national security and citizen security, that policy-making body should not only include the government, it should not only include the heads of security forces, it should also include the representative of the opposition.
He points to years ago when both the opposition and government were part of a committee set up to fight crime. He says this is a kind of approach to which the country should return.
In 2010, the opposition was represented, heads of the security forces, citizens with an interest and a capability in this area. And I think we need to go back to that.
Sugarcane farmers in St. Elizabeth are expressing concern and frustration about what they say is a worsening state of the sugar industry in the parish. The farmers say the challenges are affecting their livelihood and insist they might have to drop out of the sector. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
The system right now is not geared to help the farmers. Big and small get squeezed. We have the top 20 biggest farmers here, and the top 20 biggest farmers also give up right now.
Sugarcane farmers in St. Elizabeth. The farmers gathered on Monday to voice their concerns and discuss challenges they've been facing. They say they've lost faith in the leadership of the chairman of the Northwestern region of the All-Island Jamaica Sugarcane Farmers Association.
Over the years, farmers fallen below profit level, and it reached a stage where we just can't make it no more. Over the years, fertilizer, chemical, just upkeep at the farm is more, the profit is way more we're getting. You just can't pencil.
The gathering came just hours after the farmers received the payment, but that payment seemed to have caused even more displeasure among the farmers. They say it's too small. TVJ News understands it's all due to the stoppage which affected the Appleton estate in St. Elizabeth in 2016, when a court case and an accompanying injunction prevented the estate from reaping the farmers' cane.
The fact that the crop started this year, there was a lot of spoiled cane, a whole lot of spoiled cane. As a result of that, the payment has not been good. And I identified some reason why we should call an emergency meeting. So I asked in one of the monthly meetings that a meeting be called.
That's not the only matter with which the cane farmers seem to be taking issue.
The contractor with cutters, because when they come out your field, what the estate said they must get paid for, then come the price the cane and tell us, the contractor the price the cane, and they tell us that you have to give them X amount before they go to the cane field or cut it.
We contacted the chairman for North St. Elizabeth Cane Farmers Association, Hubert Baker, who said he was not willing to comment on the matter. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
And coming up in prime time news, we have our comments from our friends on Facebook and Twitter. And Archie with the smart board right after this.
Chevanese Turner says just as long as the road will be fixed, it doesn't matter. People deserve good roads. We have some really bad ones in my community. Seems to me we have to do some road blocking too. Bad roads are really annoying and frustrating. Next comment from Shavar, who says, I always have concerns whenever this government does anything in the name of national interest, when it's obvious of their motive. I hope the 600 million will pave the junction road to an internal journey. Maureen McLeod says it's better to have it properly done than to hasten the project for a temporary fix. That would be more costly in the long run. And finally, Dervin Meyer says certainly not. What we need is transparency. As such, we expect the Contractor General to pay keen interest, as he's supposed to do with every contract. Keep your comments coming on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/Television Jamaica, and your tweets to @TelevisionJam. News from overseas and the business news after the break.